Can I invent this weapon before Toph? Does Vital Lacerda like Civ games? Hello. Welcome to Bad at Board Games.
Well, we are bad at board games.
I'm Brad Lake.
I'm Topher Ferguson.
We're bad at board games, so you don't have to be like Toph.
Or like Brad.
And Toph's back for at least a couple days. Might have some good videos now.
I've missed you all.
Yes, they've missed you too.
I mean, you got to put up with him, so I can understand
It's not as good with you're not here.
You're welcome.
All righty. Let's get on. We're not going to spend an hour on this. We are going to give you our first impressions because I don't know if we'll ever get this played 10 times.
Maybe.
No. Inventions by Vital Lacerda. Eagle-Gryphon Games. Production-wise, they're always killing it. So what's the theme?
Yes. So with Inventions, we are actually kind of moving through civilizations, bringing them into the current age as best as possible. We start with the Stone Age, and we start building inventions, presenting ideas, getting it out there, trying to do as best as we can to present it to the world and share our inventions, all in the hope of getting what I'm going to call victory points.
Always.
He calls them something else in every game, but it's just victory points.
Just victory points.
But yeah, it sounds super simple. It is not necessarily a Civ game, but it is kind of a Civ game because you are building up.
Civ game of inventions.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So you're not like getting battles or fighting or doing any of that kind of stuff, but it's like you almost want to think of how you progress through time.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing that through the inventions that you create and explore and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's done in such a way that is just a little taxing on the brain. I'm not smart.
All right.
Not smart.
So what are the 5 billion mechanics in this?
Yeah, so there's a whole lot going on in this game. There's a lot of things that you can do if you're smart enough to be able to figure that out. We're not. But if you are, you can do a whole lot. But by and large, this is what I say, pseudo worker placement. You're not necessarily blocking other people, but you're blocking yourself and where you can place your, we'll call them meeples, but your pillars of time.
Kind of like Scythe, where you can't go the same place twice.
Correct. Yeah, you can. Yeah. So you're blocking yourself. You can move to somewhere different on the next turn that you play. But there's a little bit more that goes onto this. We can talk about that later. But that is kind of the biggest part of it, is the worker placement part. There's also point-based movement, although it's not a huge, not a grid action. It's not something where you're constantly going to be moving, but there is a little bit of movement. There's also some engine building that you've got to kind of play through and figure out as you go. It's very tight, so that's not easy to do. And tableau building is going to be a big part of that, and that's, this small little player board that Brad has that cannot fit your entire tableau on because you've got more that extends off the sides of it. But you've got these different things that are playing together with some very minor actions. But by and large, I would say worker placement, little bit of movement, not so much area control, but a little bit of that. And then the big thing is the engine building through your tableau building.
Yeah. Extremely tight.
Yes. Yeah.
Tight. Player count, best player count. I'm not sure we could tell you that. The one thing there is a solo in this, but even at the 2-player count, they use the autonoma. I would say the nice thing about it was the autonoma was easy to use. So it wasn't like some god-awful kind of crazy autonoma thing. Once you read it, I think, once we understood it, the very first, then it was like we didn't have to reference the rules again about how the autonoma worked.
Correct.
It was quick. So if it's like that with the solo version, I would say you might actually enjoy this solo. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree completely. The solo, and I've read through the solo rules as well as the 2-player variant. I think it was designed to be a 3 or 4-player game, which is why there's the 2-player variant. But yeah, the actual administering of it, like when we started reading the rules and I was like, oh man, we've got to play with an autonoma to do this. And then immediately, I'd say maybe within 2 to 3 plays, or rounds, not plays of the game, but rounds, we figured it out almost instantly, and it was just like, oh, okay, this is what he does.
It's not too bad, and you need it because it helps speed up the game. It would take a lot longer because he brings out ideas or takes the idea to an invention. It's moving the board along, so I can see, so I would say this is a 3-player game, and then he's created an autonoma for 1 and 2 players.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd ever want to play this at 4.
I'd like to see. We have not played it at 4. I would like to see what it would be like, but the amount of time, I think this is going to be extreme AP for whoever it is that plays it. Because for one, I don't think anybody's bringing this to the table a lot. Not say it's a bad game, just I don't think that's going to happen a lot. And then the other side of that is just with so much going on, you can't just say, I'm good at this, now I'm going to play it and always be good. Like there's so much that's going on. It's going to change every game.
Yeah. The time, how long does it take? Forever. This is not TI, but it's close. So like,
no.
But we were open playing, cooperative playing, kind of like we've told you in the past. Like that's how we're trying to learn games now. Is just like we're not trying to be competitive. We're trying to be open. What should I do here? How should I do it? And that typically helps you go faster. This game was not fast. It took us 4 hours to get through this. I mean, we would really it is so tight and punishing. Like it was trying to can I do that? No, I can't do that. Oh, I can't go here because you can't double back on the worker placement that you want, a la Scythe kind of thing. And it was just painful. Yeah. So we won't get too much into that, but it takes longer than the box.
Yeah, they say 60 to 150 minutes, and you would have to be
flying
proficient at this game to be able to do that. Now, granted, we kept going back to the rules because we kept saying there's no way that's what that means. And I don't know if we figured it all out yet, but yeah, it definitely
every time we look further, it's like, yep, we played that right.
Yeah.
So it's just that tight.
It's just we're bad at board games.
Yep. So you want to break down the rules and the overall gameplay?
Yes. So the gameplay itself, when it comes to the rules, is not very difficult. You're going to do, that's not difficult. It still took forever to learn, but there's 4 things that's going to happen on your turn. You're going to prepare for that round, which pretty much says I'm going to prepare however many links I have to be able to do chain actions that you'll never be able to take, that we won't. Normal people would. We would not. So you prepare those, then you do your main actions, and then after that's done, we're going to do some cleanup from the round. So really, your turn is going to be the main actions. And so over on this side of the board, you're going to notice on the left is pretty much everything that's kind of building engines and what you're doing. On the right side of the board is kind of the player board area. But in the middle here in this section is the forums where you're going to be able to pick and choose which action you're going to take. And it depends on the time of the era how you can definitely do that. But when you start the game, you're going to have 3, that's you, I'm not that color ever. You're going to have 3 pillars. One is larger, it's an epoch, and then you have 2 smaller seasons pillars. And so you're going to take your pillar based on how you are in the era, and you're going to either put out the season or the epoch pillar. And you pick any of the forums. There's 5 of them, but there's 10 actions total. So each forum has 2 actions. Take it, you put it down on the board, you take the action of that spot. That is going to give you things to do everywhere else in the game. And sometimes it's going to give you chain actions, which we can talk about a little bit later on. But there's only 10 main actions, so actually learning them, not overly difficult. Learning how to play them well is. But in essence, you're going to present an idea out to the world, and it's going to be in a region on the board. So one of the continents is going to have this idea. It's not an invention yet, just an idea. Once you do that, then the next action on the board is going to be to actually invent that idea. And this can be done by anybody. So you are never going to be able to present, invent, and innovate your ideas all just your own idea. Like, we're all going to be working together at this. But you put out an idea, then you invent that idea.
Then somebody invents that idea.
Somebody invents that idea, yeah. Another action is going to be innovating that idea. So you can, or innovating the invention. So making that invention better, or this is where somebody else absolutely has to do it. You cannot innovate your own idea further, but they're going to kind of make that a better action. And
product plus.
Yeah, product plus. And in doing so, unlock some other actions that could be taken as chains sometimes. The last one, it comes to your actual inventions. The 4th of the invention actions is to present that idea out to the world, or that invention out to the world. And this is really where the scoring and the movement of the game to progress it further is going to take place, because that's going to free up that region of the world for a new idea to come into play. So those are the 4 main actions. And if you participate, you're going to get some type of benefit, whether you presented the idea, invented it, innovated it, or called it out to the world. So 4 actions. The other 6 actions are things that's going to help you either in engine building or something else. You can call your workers home. So you have citizens that you're going to be training and developing throughout the game. You've got either specialists who are in one set area, or you've got scholars that are kind of like wilds. But you're going to take them and you're going to have to spend them as currency throughout the game. You're going to put them in regions of the world. And sometimes you might want to call them back. So that is calling them back so that they can be used as currency again to do more actions. You can also gain influence. Influence is very important in this game because it's going to give you the ability to do more chaining of actions and victory points. You can travel around the board, being able to move your people around, and sometimes gaining some sages to be able to work for you, which are kind of like wilds and give you more workers, which is a good benefit to have. You have Eureka, where you're going to be bringing new milestones onto the board and moving yourself up in the era. So you could get ahead of the times, or you could fall behind the times, which both Brad and I did.
I was
a
ahead
lot.
of you.
You were ahead, actually. You
I
did
was ahead a lot
Yeah. Well, yeah. He was ahead
on that one.
Yeah, he did well with that spot. I did not. The last 2 actions are diplomatic actions, and I love this because that's kind of the world I live in, of international diplomacy. But the idea of going out and sending your workers to be diplomats on other players' milestone markers so that you could unlock additional abilities and chaining actions to be able to use. Because at times, in order to invent something, you have to have the milestone to be able to do so. And so that's going to be good. It's going to give you actions, but it's going to allow you to do more. And then the last action is to call them home. Sometimes you need them on your board, and so you call those diplomats back to your home base. So those are the 10 actions. But like we mentioned, when you go to the forum, you cannot go in the same space, and actually you cannot go in the same actual forum. So if I'm on, I don't know, calling an action or presenting an idea, I can't then place one of my markers on presenting that idea to the world.
So there's 5 rows, 2 in every row. You can only have one of your pillars in that row.
Yeah.
So kind of like, just we're going back to Scythe, right? Scythe has the top and bottom. You got, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 sections.
4 sections, yeah.
You can't stay in that same section. You got to move out and go somewhere else. And that, in and of itself, is really what makes this tight.
Yes, because you do have 3 pillars. And so your pillars are going to stay there until the next round, and you're able to move one of those pillars. And depending on the time of the era, you have to move either a season or your epoch pillar. So if I'm moving this season, I only have 2 spaces I can go to. I can pick from 4 actions, but I can only pick 2 rows to move to. So it is going to get very tight. You've got to be able to do a lot of future planning, which I'm not as good with.
Good luck.
Yeah, he's good at that. But,
and it's still too deep. I don't know. There's a lot going on. Pros and cons. We've talked that up enough.
Yeah.
Pros.
Why don't you start with this one?
Pros. Pros are hard on this one. It's Eagle-Gryphon. It's Vital Lacerda. The production value is through the roof.
Toole artwork.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pro. I think it's nice that it's simplistic, so to speak, with the actions. I'm going to pick one of these 10 places, but I only really get to pick, it's limited by 2. So one of 5 places really that I'm going to get to go. That's nice. But then, so like if you've played other Lacerda games, you'll pick up on some of the things that he's ported in from other games. But there's also just new stuff here that's like, wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
those are some pros.
Yeah, we can kind of go back and forth with some of the pros and cons too. I absolutely love engine building games completely. That might be my absolute favorite mechanic. Like worker placement is one of my favorites of all times, but I love building the engine. I love the thinky aspect of it. And with this game, you can do that in so many different ways, which I think is a pro. However, I also think it can be a con because there's so much going on that it's going to take forever to learn how to do anything well in this game.
And I don't feel like it engine builds. So I don't know. It's weird. I can't, it doesn't feel like Terraforming Mars engine build. It doesn't feel like any other kind of engine build. If there's an engine, it's really, really tiny.
Yeah. And it's little things that you have to think so far in advance to be able to get. Like when you actually have these ideas out on the board, if you have what is it, invented or called it out, you get to keep the card when it is shared with the world. So one person's going to keep this card. It's going to go beside your board, and at that point, you're going to have some type of a benefit that's going to come from it that can help in the cost of doing other upgrades, things that we haven't even discussed, which is your player board, being able to put out new tiles and kind of get these benefits, one-time actions, ongoing actions, or scoring actions, things that's going to help you typically in the game. And so little things like that I love looking for. And I think that little thing of, having these beside your board and getting a discount on the cost of doing something, I love. Or the fact that when you get these tiles, these specialty tiles, you are putting them not immediately into your board, but you're saving them in kind of a zone, and you have to spend a whole lot of money to get it up, or you can actually wait until you get 4 of them, and then it only costs $4 to put them up into your map. Or no, I'm sorry, free to move them up into the map. So it's kind of this game of what do I do? When do I do it? And I love that aspect. I truly love that aspect. I'm not good with a lot of future planning. I'm very good with tactical play, but I do love that aspect.
Yeah, so what Toph's talking about is these 4 spaces for these different tokens that you can get after it's invented, and you take that from there and bring it to your board. It costs more. The most, if you only have 1, it's going to cost you the most to get it up on your tableau. And if you have 2, it costs less, 3, 4, and then it's cheaper to move them up that way. So you don't want to move them up, or you want to try to collect as many of those as you can during your turn or during your time before you move them up. And that gets a little bit easier. And so there is that bit of an engine. Mm-hmm. And then as you get these, some of them allow you to discount some other things that you have, right? So that is a bit of an engine, but it's not like, oh, I've got a ton of money now. Like, it never feels like the game opens up.
No,
it really
it's
like in engines, it feels like it's tight, and then the game just is like, oh, look at all these opportunities I have because my engine's starting to work for me. Mm-hmm. Never feels like that.
Yeah. One thing I do like that he did with this idea of you have all these different tiles, and looking through them, trying to figure out which one you want is going to take some time. So they've given you these placeholder pieces that you can slot into your player board in the moment that you gain them, and it's just a placeholder. So then after your turn is done and somebody else is going to play, and like while Brad's playing, I can sit there and I can look through the pieces, see which one I want to swap it out with.
Doesn't hold up the game.
Yeah.
It's still a long game.
It's still a long game.
But it doesn't hold up. Like, by the time he selects something, it's back to him.
It's back to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that I think, they do such a good job in the way that they design the game. Andy and Vital Lacerda and Toole are just a fantastic duo. Mm-hmm. The things that they can implement into it to make the game play so well is so great. Sometimes can be a downfall. There's a lot of iconography in this game, so you're going to have to get used to it.
But it's a global game. It's always going to have iconography. So
yeah, and it also makes the game board smaller than it would be. This is the biggest game that I think I own table presence-wise.
So you got any other pros that you can think of?
I mean, there's always going to be pros because it's a heavyweight Euro that I absolutely love.
Do you absolutely love this one, though?
I'm on the fence with this one on how well I love it.
So do you have any more pros?
I mean, yeah, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty. We could be here a long time nitpicking on all kinds of stuff. Right. So let's talk some cons.
Cons, you first.
Okay. This game is, let's just go with table presence. It's big. It almost will not fit on my dining room table. Definitely is not going to fit on the table here in the studio.
We would never be able to play this on.
To do a playthrough on it.
Decent sized table.
Yeah.
But no way.
It's huge. Which is fun, but at the same time.
And you have these big, nice, good sized tableaus, so it's kind of easier to see things. But then the cards go outside that. So, you need almost a 3-foot space just for you to play the game.
Yeah.
So
that makes it hard, right? That makes it hard. But it's beautiful.
Yep. My biggest con with this is I think most other games that he has seem to make sense, and in a way that like Kanban, you're getting plans for a car, and then you're building the car, and then you're testing the car, and then your quality, you have all of these things and you're upgrading the car. All that stuff makes sense and you understand the flow of it. Lisboa, you understand the flow of that, and then like I don't understand all of it, but there, like I understand the part where you're gonna go and build something and take those cubes, and you're getting the rubble and doing, like it makes sense. The gallerist, where you're going to get art and you're trying to show it, and like it makes sense. This one, I struggle with this one. I struggle seeing I get the fact, and when Toph talks about it, we have the idea. Oh, somebody invented it based off of my speech, right? And then somebody improved it. Yay! Like that makes sense, and you're moving around the world. But then, like some of this other stuff just doesn't seem to make sense, and mechanically, it just seems like I have a mechanic so that you have to do this so that it's hard. Versus it like all mesh. Sometimes these games are just like so well oiled that it's like you're flowing, you understand it, and that because you understand the concept of how it gets built or how it flows, it makes the game easier to understand. This one is just like, I don't know. It is not does not flow.
It's like Brad and I are both good gamers. So we laugh and say we're bad at board games.
We can play games, but I can't necessarily score high.
Yeah, that is true. But we typically get the games, and we play a lot of heavyweight games. Like this is not a, light medium player trying to play a heavyweight game. We regularly play heavyweight games and love them. And I feel like I do not get this. Like I've got a very scientific mind. Brad's an engineer. Like we have the ideas of what it takes for inventions. And I think that part we are good with. Everything else almost feels a little disjointed. I love the theme of it. Like I love the idea of, there's diplomats and you're, doing all these, working together as nations so that everybody can move forward. Some are going to move faster. Some are going to fall behind. But it's like the idea of that is great. The idea of it kind of civilization, great. The idea of the eras and the way that the milestones and all that work, great. It's almost too much. And that's where it's like you focus on one thing and then everything else is like falling away from you, and therefore you feel like you can't do anything.
And it's so tight, and like the engine doesn't seem to build. So you can, as you innovate things, you can start getting, these inventions, mining and agriculture and mathematics and so forth and so on, like a Civ game. And they kind of move around over here and shuffle in and shuffle out as you create them. But it didn't seem to help you.
Yeah.
It just seemed to be another thing over there that was like, how am I integrating this with the invention side of the board? Like, okay, I invented that. Now I can kind of go over here and it's another invention that I have to now wait until it gets kicked off the board with the whole snaking system. And it just felt like, okay, there's a mechanic. I can't figure out how to tie that into the other mechanics. Yeah. That was the big thing. It just couldn't seem to tie the stuff together to flow. And I think I imagine the most of it is this action selection worker placement thing in the middle, because you can't ever go in the same place. I was thinking this, like, is this another On Mars where you have to play cooperatively? Like if I get the idea, you have to invent it, and then something like, and if you don't, it just doesn't jive. And like, it's not clear cut enough in my opinion. Like at least on Mars, you get it. It's like blatantly in your face. I don't feel like this is blatantly in your face enough to make you work cooperatively.
Yeah, like with On Mars, you have to move your colonies, advance them kind of at the same rate. Otherwise, nobody's really getting benefits for it. And with this idea, I mean, I think it does kind of make sense. The idea of, these milestones are coming out, things are being invented, and so you have access to things to do better or further down the road inventions, different era inventions. But it's just the planning of it is so far ahead, and to only have 13 turns in the game, it's like, where are we?
That's the other thing. There's 13 turns. It's 13 turns and over.
Yeah.
Which seems like a lot, but in the end, it just doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah.
So, and it's really only 12 because the last round's.
Well, there's so you're gonna start with a round, and then like a setup round, Stone Age, and then you're gonna go through, and so you do have. Maybe it is just 12. I was thinking it was 13.
Yeah.
But Either
Anyway,
way, the last one is just going to be scoring when you get to it.
So we're going too long, as we typically do, 20 minutes in. So our next, those are our pros and cons, and then
there's definitely a few others, but those are the big ones.
What's our weight rating?
Yeah, so this is heavy. This is a 4.68 according to what's on BGG, and I think that's funny because On Mars is a 4.67, which was the heaviest game I think we had played really leading up to this one.
I do feel like this is pushing a 5.
Yeah, I think this is definitely, and it could just be that Brad and I are not getting it for some reason, but the fact that neither of us are getting it, and we do get different games, you know, it's one of us should be able to.
And it's just tight. So all the complexity and it being so tight pushes it up to, right up at that 5 rating. So in the effort of time, we're going to go value rating, $150. Toph, you bought this. You got it cheaper than $150. What's your value rating out of 5? If this were like probably $75, you'd probably feel like it's a value of 5 for the experience you're getting, and the production you're getting at $150.
So 150, 160 something average from the publisher. This is hard. So this is first impressions. If we play it more, maybe my rating will change. But for me, I don't get this game, and I'm nervous it's really not going to get to the table so much with all the other heavyweight games that we have and love. And so really, honestly, the value rating of this, I think, for me, is pretty low.
Like a 2 or a 2?
No, I don't think it's that low. I think it's a good enough game that I'm going to tinker with it every now and then solo, and maybe we can. I'd like to get good at it. I'd love to get good at it. I'm thinking it's somewhere like 3.5 for me.
I would say, based on the experience I had I spent $150 on it, it'd be a 2.5.
Okay.
I don't think it's average. I think this is a below average for the money game.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, like in my idea, why I'm saying it's a little bit more than average is because I want to tinker with it and try to figure out parts of it. But I, at this moment, am not going to choose it over any of the other Lacerdas that we have.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So BGG rankings, I'm going to do something a little bit different just to kind of give you an idea, right? So CO2 has a BGG ranking of 7.5, 3,300 people. Escape Plan is a 7.5, 5,100 people. Weather Machine sitting at 7.8 with 3,000 votes. The Gallerist is an 8 with 14,000 votes. And kind of one of the easier ones, right? Innovations is sitting at 8.1 with only 757 votes. Now, this is fairly new out, so it hasn't been around as a long time, but like typically when people get these Lacerdas with all the Kickstarters, because it did well, people aren't rating it. So that's telltale. The people that are rating it like it. The people that aren't rating it, maybe they're a little ashamed to be like, I don't. Anyway.
Now, I will say, I don't know if this has delivered to everywhere around the world.
Yeah, but it's just, I still find it interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's been out and people have received it, over a month ago. Lisboa is sitting at 8.19, 10,000 votes. On Mars is 8.2, 13,000 votes. And Kanban is 8.43. So those are the ones that we have. A couple of them we still haven't played Weather Machine. But, or I should say Toph has. Collectively because if it's in his, if it's his apartment.
We count them as.
I can play it.
Yeah.
So anyway, my BGG rating of this right now, I think it's I'd say a 6.
Wow.
Like right now, I'm going to play it again to see if I can make it a 7. But right now, I think this is a 6. I would, all those other games on this list, I'll play before I'd play this. And once we get 10 Lacerdas played enough, we'll do our top Lacerdas. So you can imagine that this one's going to be low for me.
Yeah, we still have a couple to play that's in our collection. Mine's a little higher than that. I'm putting this at a 7, but I don't think I have a Lacerda that's under 8.5 yet. So
yeah, some of
there's
like
a
you have
big
9.
discrepancy. I have a 10.
We both
Lisboa is a 10. On Mars is a 10. Like
we both liked On Mars. We both like Kanban. We both like the Gallerist.
Gallerist
this
and
is
Kanban
a big,
are both over 9.
For us, this is a big hit. Now, Weather Machine I kind of heard is iffy too, but we haven't we got it, but we don't have it at the table yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So-
So I'm putting it at a 7, and I'm hoping that goes up as we play it, and as I'm hoping the solo of this is as good as the 2-player variant.
Yeah.
So
we shall see. So who is this for? This is if you have been wanting the hardest game in your collection, short of a coin game, this is for you.
yeah.
I mean, like, I would say if you like 4-weight games, this probably isn't even for you.
I agree with that.
Like, this is no joke. Like, you gotta you better be like, oh, all of Lacerdas are easy. If you think all the Lacerdas are a 4, then maybe this is for you. But if you're, like, this is by far the hardest game we've played.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So-
And I don't know if that's just we're not getting it and everybody else is. But if you look at the ratings, I like the comments that are being made about them. It's so small for it to have been delivered to me, 2 months ago? A little over 2 months ago?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
first
usually
backers
like every
higher.
Lacerda plays it and like gets it out and goes and rates it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little. I find it unusual that it's such a small number of ratings.
Yeah.
So.
I want to love it. I thought I would love this because the theme.
Oh,
man.
I thought this was going to be like Kanban. I thought this was going to be the better than Kanban because I like the Inventions. I like games like that. But like I said, the hardest part was it just that side with the mechanics worked. This side over here, and how it just like locked everything down. On Mars isn't this tight.
Yeah. And
So-
little things about it, this is probably my biggest con, is the difference in how the chain actions work. Lacerda has that in so many of the games, and you know what you can do. You have a list of them. Maybe you can only do one, but you pick one, you do it. With this, even the chaining action is so limited because it's only certain places that will allow you to do certain actions. Not any action, only
And if
certain
you get
ones.
it to chain, you may only get it. May be something you can't use. Like,
yeah.
and
and-
it's all randomly out there, so it's rough.
Yeah. So that's it. This
What do
should
you
be-
think? Have you played it? Are we idiots? You love it. It's your favorite Lacerda ever. Haven't played it. You're looking for us to be like, may skip that one. Honestly, if you want to pick a Lacerda, I would go. I still recommend Kanban or the Gallerist. If you're being your first ones.
For first ones, yeah. For first ones, definitely. I think the Gallerist is the lightest of his big box heavy strategies.
Mhm.
Escape Plan, I think, is a little bit less, but it's a different.
Completely
It's a different
though.
game, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, of his big box Euro strategy games, I think Gallerist is the lowest weight, and I think it's extremely fun.
Yeah,
I don't want to
a
say it's
good
the most
game.
fun of them because obviously I love some of the other ones a little bit more,
Yeah.
but
But
it's a
it
great
tips
game.
you can dip your toe into a Lacerda with that one or Kanban. I mean,
Yeah, Kanban too.
there's enough out there to being able to learn Kanban. Not so good.
Yeah. Kanban was one that took me a little bit. I don't know anything about cars and manufacturing of cars. Brad does. And so, but I still got it.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, as we talk for 30 minutes in our quick review, right? Just
First-
remember,
First impressions.
comment down below because we like to talk to you, and Toph will be around and he can answer your questions. And,
Yeah, I miss you guys.
Mhm. So, just remember, no matter how you play, whether it's solo, with family, or friends,
Enjoy whatever games you're bringing to the table.
have a great night.